read a lot in my childhood and adulthood. I still read quite a bit. I'd read anything: fairy tales, horrors, thrillers, literary books. I devoured them all. I also loved fantasies and tales of faraway kingdoms where witches, evil stepmothers, and dark wizards got their comeuppance. I read everything and anything: Secret Seven, the Kama Sutra, Nancy Drew books, and many other books that a child had no business reading. The adults never found out, as I was very good about keeping quiet and putting the reading material back in its place. One thing I noticed: the stories were always so happy. Nancy Drew always got the bad guy in the end. The Secret Seven always solved the mystery. The men and women in the more adult books reached stages of euphoria that you couldn't believe. Everything was always such bliss. However, life has a way of showing you the reality, and I slowly realized as I grew up and went into the adult world without the protective shield of my home life, that it wasn't quite as it seemed. As I started to deal with the various challenges, I realized a lot of the stories had lied. Grandparents didn't always wave to you from their doorway with warm smiles plastered on their faces as you walked away. They wouldn't always be there. That school friend who seemed boring due to being so responsible, but who was secretly being beaten at home by a wicked mother. He just wanted to be liked and appreciated. Death, pain, depression were never factored in any of these stories I read. When I read older books, it was the same. The teens in my young adult books were always happy, bubbly, chirpy. Their concerns centered around whether they would get asked out by the hot boy at school and vice versa. Would the pauper girl be saved by the prince? I would also like to add, the prince had his eye on a beautiful princess from another kingdom, yet by some fluke would find the pauper girl and make a split-second decision to marry her as she paraded around town in her dregs. I guess as I got older, I started to feel a disconnect. I think the closest I got to the reality of pain was Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, and that was very brief. It was released at a particularly difficult time in my life, and strangely enough gave me some comfort. Life wasn't always a straight, easy line, but rather had lots of curves, winding roads, and ravenous beasts waiting in some dark hidden corners. You didn't just wish for the hot boy and get him. It also struck me that the issue of depression was never openly discussed in books. Everything was always resolved, tidily and neatly presented in a bow. But life had so many twists and turns and unexpected surprises. I thought there was something wrong with me at first. Why was I choosing to look at the world through such a dark lens? And I realized I was just being realistic. Life was full of many things, many events, expected and unexpected, pain, peace, love, bereavement, death. Although I'd loved my fantasy books growing up, I wish there'd been a hint more reality in them. No one was ever that happy. I'd started to write very early on in life. I'd write a series or possibly a book and then put it aside as I moved on to the next project. What can I say? Busy brain syndrome. As I got older, I started pulling stacks of paper from boxes and bookshelves as I revisited my old work. I was looking for stories to work on, expand the characters and plot lines, I realised my views had drastically changed, although the fantasy element remained. I will always love fantasy and world building, but my stories became slightly darker in nature as time went on. I suppose I was no longer the innocent child. I intended to show life in all its beauty and ugliness. My Dwellers Beneath the Arches series was one that started off innocently, full of magic, enchantment and wonder. But by the time I'd reread it, added to it and changed things around, it became a series that quite a few of my readers could relate to. Writing with reality and taking inspiration from it is not a bad thing. I think it just makes the story or book more interesting. It adds depth to the characters and makes some readers relate even more. And more importantly, compared to the fairy tales of our childhood, it shows not all things are black and white. Good and evil aren't such plain and simple concepts. The villains are sometimes the ones who need rescuing, and the heroes, well, they can be very dark.